So hello folks, my name is Noel Gowan from GrassTech, and I just want to take a few moments in this video to introduce a new service that we're going to be providing within GrassTech called Herd Builders. So Herd Builders is an advisory service as such, an independent advisory service to try to help dairy farmers make the most informed genetic decisions or breeding decisions to try to maximize the amount of genetic gain that they can make in the herd. Okay. This is a service we'll be rolling out from more or less the 1st of January in 2022, and the service will manifest itself in two ways. One is to help farmers make the most informed breeding decisions through sire selection. You know what bulls to use when they're choosing the bulls for AI, but equally to look at the dam side and look at the herd side as well to see which cows should be used to breed replacements. If there's stock for sale on the farm, which stock should be sold from the farm and which stock should be retained, again, to maximise output and performance from the herd. So spearheading this service, we have a gentleman called Andrew Dineen. Andrew is from Kilnamatra in County Cork. In fairness, Andrew is a living, breathing encyclopedia on dairy genetics in Ireland and partly across Europe as well. Okay. He's a passion for dairy genetics, and Andrew took over his farm around 20 years ago and took it from being, in his own words, relatively average in terms of output and performance, and has turned it primarily through using the right genetics, has turned it into a herd that's in the top 1% for so many key performance indicators for a farm here in Ireland. So this is Andrew.
No.
So, welcome, Andrew.
Thank you.
So, I suppose overall, why do you believe in Herd Builders, and why is potentially this service so important in Ireland?
Well, I suppose, look, we came from like I said there, Noel, from a really poor performing herd, and was always wondering why. We came from an RBI at the time, which was a relative breeding index, it was called, and that was mainly driven by just production alone. Then we found out that things weren't going too well. There was a lot of milk being put in there and really poor focus on a lot of key traits. The main one really is fertility. So the BI then was evolved, and in fairness, the super index, there was indexes in that there that, you know, the EBI is made up of 7 indexes there. The 2 main ones would be fertility and milk production, and they've practically equal weighting. So it just shows the importance of fertility, because we had slipped back a lot there with North American Holsteins coming in, probably, you know, the wrong genetics in hindsight. You know, they weren't grass-based genetics, they were pushing a lot of litres and things like that there. So look, fertility is production, because your cow will be retained in the herd for longer. And look, it is working and working very well. So we've made huge strides with EBI in relation to retaining our cows and having longer lactations.
Yeah. Okay. So straight in, you spoke about EBI. So like we're here on a dairy farm here in County Cork. Like the EBI, I know the EBI of this herd is, I think it's approximately 150. So just to take a step back to just to explain EBI, you know, what does that 150 mean?
Yeah, I suppose, look, the 150, I suppose the EBI is made up of 7 indexes. You know, there's maintenance, you know, the weight of an animal, there's health, there's which involves somatic cell count and lameness. And look, they're all really important. There's the beef side of index, the calving side of it, of the index. So I suppose to simplify everything, they came up with, you know, there's 7 indexes here. They all have different weightings, and a lot of the weightings are down to the economical environment we're in. You know, how is it important to retain and keep animals in our herd? Now the environment is after changing. There's bigger amounts of animals on farm. Now the health is a big focus. You know, the big focus going forward now for me would be the maintenance and how efficient these animals are, because there's a lot of outside factors there now going forward. You know, we need an efficient animal. And like you're saying, look, to simplify all those, they came up with one formula in EBI, and I suppose, look, if we've a herd 150, you multiply that by 2, and that means that, you know, your animal in that herd is €300 more efficient, you know, than the average animal, you know. So it is a good, there's no, the EBI isn't perfect, but there's no breeding index around the world perfect, you know. And look, I think the EBI has to change because the environment that we're moving into in the next 2 or 3 years is going to be totally different to what it is now.
Right. Okay.
And like the main reason is energy costs, you know, feed importation and things like that. There's all carbon footprints linked into them. And going forward, you know, we like your Board B audit, for argument's sake, does a carbon footprint in your farm.
Yeah.
And the efficiency level there on a lot of farms could be greatly improved, and a lot of it is purely down to just, you know, the weighting of the genetics in their herd. It should be a little bit more balanced, a little bit more focused.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of good genetics out there. There's a lot of poor genetics as well.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that will say that for this herd, on average, this herd is giving a higher return of about €300 per cow per lactation compared to the average within.
That would be correct. Yeah.
So I think, in fairness, it's correct to say that, you know, it's desirable to have a relatively high EBI index anyway, and that it should be.
Everything.
It simplifies a lot of things. Okay. So for this particular farmer, then within this herd, he has, so the average is 150. He has some cows. If the average is 150, he's probably, some of them maybe at under 100, and some of them maybe over 200 then. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's like, it is an average, you know. It's like, you know, you probably potentially have cows inside there. Milk production, for argument's sake, they're all treated the same. They all eat the same amount of ration in the parlour.
Yeah. And
they all go to the paddock and eat the same amount of grass. But you've one animal that will calve every year. 365-day calving interval, and they'll stay on the farm for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lactations.
Right, yeah.
And you will also have a cow in there that's doing, like I said, eating the same, and she will deliver €1,000 more milk production.
Okay.
You know, so like that's the beauty about genetics, is that all animals can be treated the same, and they are all treated the same. They go out the field, they eat the same, like I'm repeating myself.
Yeah.
But they can deliver, your best cow and your worst cow could be €1,000 extra profit. And that is solely down to genetics. It's not down to management. Like, management is 40%, genetics is 60%.
Okay.
So you could have poor management, but you could have still animals that are unbelievable to give you really good performance and go on calf every year. And that's solely down to genetics.
Yeah.
And management has a huge role to play, don't get me wrong.
Okay.
But genetics actually has a bigger role to play.
So, like, that's significant. €1,000 per cow of a difference between the top performers and the lowest performers within the herd.
That's correct.
So what reports or what information is out there to tell the farmer which cow is which? Do we solely look at EBI, or do we look at other information?
Like I said, EBI, you know, it gives you an indicator of the animal. But like, I think the biggest mistake is that farmers make is that you have to look within that EBI. You know, the future is telling us now, you know, the more litres we produce, you know, volume has a negative effect on percentages. The more volume you have, you dilute what you have. So it's trying to find the balance. And, like, you know, in fairness to ICBF, they will tell you, you know, super formula and everything, like I said, it mightn't be 100%, but there's no index 100%. But I suppose going forward, we need to have quality more than quantity. And if you're pushing all those milk solids, if it's coming from volume, it's going to have a huge impact. And there is talks at the moment that, you know, there's going to be a tiering system in relation to production, that any cow that's going to do over 6,500 litres, their organic nitrogen, which was originally 89, is going to go up to 106. And what that means is that if you have cows producing huge volumes with poor percentages, It has two negatives. It has one negative at the moment, that each centilitre is costing 4 cents for manufacturing costs. So every litre you produce on farm is costing 4 cents before you start it all. Now, going forward in the next 3 or 4 years, these higher producers are going to have a higher carbon footprint, because you don't get all that milk out unless you put the equivalent in. And a lot of that is bought in from outside feed, and high inputs, soybean for argument's sake, coming across there with a high carbon footprint, and we are going to be penalising that going forward. So I think we should really focus on the genetics that we put in our animals today, and future-proof that genetics for 3 or 4 years' time, where the environment will be totally different compared to where it is now.
Okay.
And we've been penalising volume now in relation to how much milk we produce, but we're going to be penalised in a different way in 3 or 4 years' time.
Okay.
For those. So my thinking would be is to drive your kgs of milk solids, what we're not being penalised in, we're being penalised in volume, drive it through better percentages, and moderate milk, because, production going forward is going to be our enemy.
Okay.
And it's about balanced breeding.
So that's the first word of caution that you're saying is to be careful of selecting either bloodlines or bulls that are quite strong in milk without the high solids coming with them. And I suppose when you think about it, if you're giving breeding decisions, or if you're helping a farmer to select bulls next spring, it'll be 2025 before they will have production in the herd. So it's time to start thinking about these things. It's fair to say we know what's coming down the line in terms of new regulations, so it's time to start thinking of these things sooner rather than later. Yeah.
Look, it's I think the biggest thing is to look how you're paid for your milk. Look at the payment structure. It's A, B minus C. So you're paid handsomely for protein, and now fat is a huge factor as well. That we're being paid more for fat now than I think we ever did before. So it's hugely important to push both of them. And if you push your percentages, like we have done a case study there, Noel, which is plain to be seen, and you don't need massive volume, to have a very efficient herd. Too much volume there has a negative effect in fertility, and that's widely known.
Okay.
We're a grass-based system. We want our cow calving back again in 365 days. And I think the case study here, and a lot of farms there like that, that going forward, less is more. I think that's a very important point.
Okay.
The question there, it's based on spring milk mainly. Does the same apply for the winter milkman?
I suppose what they will tell you, Norman, is that, calving interval in any system, whether it be winter or spring, is vitally important. So if you, for argument's sake, if you have a winter milk contract, you still need good calving interval. I think that's what a lot of people don't realise. So look, primarily speaking, I'm actually speaking primarily there for spring calving herds. That the same would apply. Like the winter milk contract is slightly different, that they have to produce a certain amount of percentages there. But on a spring calving herd, I suppose that's what I'm primarily speaking. Calving your cows to grass early, reducing your carbon footprint. When you calve, and it's all about carbon footprint going forward now, and how efficient the animals are going to be. And sometimes back again to less is more. Get your cows out early, get that grass in, low carbon footprint. Outside feed is going to be very expensive. All that milk, you're inside in the parlour longer producing that milk. There's more energy requirements in that milk. There's more energy to cool that milk. There's more processing costs from the co-op to extract all that water out. It has a higher carbon footprint. So the case study shows here that you can actually become very efficient. The difference between the average dairy goat supplier, which we've done in the case study, which we'll be showing there now very soon, and the top 5% is it's just unbelievable. You know, and their fellas at the top, their fellas are better than that again. So the target that we've put in place for a case study here, they're reachable targets. You know, they're not fictional targets. They're targets that can be achieved with the right selective breeding. And look, it's not about the type of breed.
Yeah.
It's about the genetics.
Okay. So right, we'll move on to the case study. So again, maybe just to give the viewers a feel for how this service would manifest itself. So again, somebody comes, they want help in terms of they want to make genetic improvement. They want to improve their breeding decisions. How can you help?
Well, I suppose back to ICBF, which is a fantastic organisation. The data they have there is just unbelievable. So, like, with the permission of the farmer, you know, we can log in there and we look at the herd overall, look at the milk sub-indexes, the fertility, back again to the EBI, and we look at all those indexes there, and if they have good fertility and they're getting poor milk price, we solely look at the milk sub-index and we analyse that, and we can see where the inefficient animals are there, like back again, two cows getting the same, they're same weight, they look the same, but one is giving you €1,000 more. So why is that? And like, it's simple down to genetics. It's her genetic ability to go back in calf and to produce high percentages, with moderate volume. And that's what we want going forward. We don't want big volume because we're going to be penalised in every way going forward with it. And that's the animal we're looking for. So we come in the herd, we look at these animals, the efficient animals, but we also look at the poor animals. And there was a study done there recently there with the National Dairy Conference, 2015, €1,115 to maintain a cow and farm. Coming year, with the high importation or the high cost in relation to feed and fertiliser and farm labour, if we can actually get it, it's potentially going to be €1,550 to maintain that cow going forward. So how can we make the savings? And the savings is keep you management and try to produce more from less. And it's not easy, but that's what genetics can do. Francis Carney, great man in ICBF, told me a long time ago that genetics, you feed the same and get more. I thought it was a right simple, but really effective. The way he described it.
Simple message.
Simple message. Yeah.
Okay.
And I suppose you analyse the poor performing animals. Do you get rid of them? That's up to the farmer themselves. I can make that mistake. I can just show them what the difference is. In some cases they will. And poor genetics, is permanent, and good genetics is permanent. And it's very, we kind of distinguish which are the good, which are the bad. Analyse their genetics over the last 7 or 8 years through ICBF again. That can be done. And have they made genetic gain? Have they made it in the right places? Or actually have they gone backwards? And a lot of farmers are using EBI for a good few years now, but they're still not happy with their performance.
Yeah.
And what's the reason for that? It's in their genetics. It's in the ICBF reports. It's there in the background, only to analyse it and pick it out. And we can tell you, look, this is where you went wrong 2 or 3 years ago. Who's picking your bulls? Are you picking them yourself? Are you getting someone else to do it? Is it your salesman or is it your targets advisor? And you can see, look, there was an improvement there by getting the help for those, or there might be a disimprovement there.
Yeah.
So
okay.
And young stock as well. Look at the genetics and the young stock.
Okay.
And sees it moving in the right direction. And I suppose future-proofing your genetics going forward, because there is going to be more pressure in the system going.
Okay, Andrew. So you said so one of the first things you do is come in and analyse the herd, looking at the genetic information that's there through ICBF, through the reports that are there through Herd Plus. Excellent. So you identify the best performing cows in the herd, but equally identify the worst performing ones. And that's from a genetics point of view, you're saying, as opposed to anything else. Okay.
Correct, yeah.
So it's fairly safe to say that those ones that are poor performing, we don't really want to breed our replacements from those. we want to focus on the top 20, 30% within the herd to breed replacements from. So that's the first side of what you would do, is identify those cows. Okay, so we're on a roll here now, but it's identifying the bulls to cross on them. Then you're that independent voice coming in. Again, you have vast knowledge of the bulls that are out there that are available, be they either daughter proven or genomics, and that's a discussion in itself. Across breeds as well, between the Holstein genetics, Frisian genetics, and the crossbred genetics. So that's a significant part of how the farm can make genetic improvement, is through identifying the right sires. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, look, I suppose to back again to, like I said, the genetics. Why would the farmer get you in the first place? You know, there's reasons why he's underperforming somewhere, and so we analyse the index. Say he's performing, just for argument's sake, the milk sub-index. We analyse that milk sub-index, and we find out, where is top, like we said, Noel, 30 or 40 cows. And why this? I think this is very important. Why are they top 30 or 40 cows? And the farmer can be shown through the genetics of those animals, there in front in black and white, that this and this and these are the figures, and this is the reason why that cow is the top performing cow. And we can look at his poor production animals or his poor EBO animals, and we can look at these figures, and they said that's the reason. Now he's after comparing two of them, and it's bringing knowledge to the farmer, because I think this is what I would like to do the most. This is what I get the biggest kick out of, is giving that knowledge in relation to genetics. You sit down with the farmer independently, one-to-one, and spend time, for the want of a better word, educating that farmer. And look, he could be more educated than me. Maybe he might be educating me for all we know. And it's a two-way street. So, but he has to find out why. And for me, that gives me the most satisfaction. To the farmer there. So when we look at a bull, he knows that this is the reason why I'm after picking that bull. And like I suppose the choices is the farmer's choice, where he wants to go with his genetics, how fast he can make that genetic gain, where he wants to make that genetic gain. And I suppose the case study there, really, is co-op performance report. And I suppose the case study that we have here is kind of relative to the co-op performance report. And, we did a case study of, 100 cows there, farmer A and farmer B. And look, Noel, maybe you can elaborate on that if you want, or ask a few questions regarding it.
Yeah, so what it is, it's an example of a situation where you would have come in and helped in terms of trying to improve the genetic gain. So the farm would have started off, a 100 cow farm would have started off with, on average, 4.2 fat, 3.6 protein. Okay, and that would be quite typical of the average. This was a farm in the Dairygold catchment. That's typical of the average for Dairygold.
That's
in
correct.
terms
Yeah.
of supply.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, on average, just under 15 litres a day, but about 427 kilos of milk solids, okay, per cow from this 100 cows. So, if you were to go look back 10 years ago, you say, that's a reasonable production.
Yeah.
But everything has moved on.
Correct.
And genetics have moved on. And your farm, as an example, showing from using probably the best bulls and identifying the best cows, how you've done it. So you applied the same knowledge of what you did to this farm, as an example. And again, so you brought it to a farm in the top 5% for many of the key performance indicators. He's gone from 4.2 to 4.6, 3.6 to 3.85. Yes, with a higher litres as well. Okay. Now, you spoke quite a lot that sometimes litres may not be your friend, and you can elaborate on how this still works here. But we brought it from a 430 kilos of milk solids to a 550 kilos of milk solids. Okay, that's a significant jump. But the ultimate benefit of it down here at the bottom is based on the current price per kilo of milk solids, is over 100 cows is an increase of profitability of about 67,000 euros. Now that's huge.
Yeah, it is huge. It's massive, and you know, I think that case study there, you know, probably highlights, you know, what the potential on a lot of farms. Like the average farm now, I think, is 85, 90 cows. You know, so this is a representative there of, you could say, the average farmer. And like these figures here are actually the Dairy Gold average milk supplier. So this figure is the Dairy Gold average milk supplier. You know, at 427 and 4.2 fat and 40. Right. So what we did is we did a case study of, you know, where do we want to be in 3 or 4 years' time? You know, and this is the top 5%, but the top 5% in Dairy Gold are actually 20 litres.
Right.
So we don't want to be putting in too much milk going forward, because we're going to be penalised in milk going forward because of its high carbon footprint and any cow that's milking over 6,500 litres. So we actually dropped the milk for this study because to future-proof ourselves going forward. And we pushed up the protein to 4.6, which is a very achievable target, and 3.85 protein. That would equate to maybe about 1.7 or something like that, 0.17 PD for protein percent. And 17.5 litres, like I said, we dropped that down. And we got an increase of 72 kgs of fat, 53 kgs of protein. So we got 125 kgs of milk solids more by reducing the milk from the top 5 or 10%, from 20 litres down to 17. But these are the driving factors that gave us the extra kgs of milk solids without putting the cow under excess pressure.
Yeah.
And it equates to 674 euros a cow, which equates to 67,400 euros. And this is extra profit. It's not profit, it's extra profit. So you could have actually 2 herd of cows of 100 cows alongside each other.
On the same system.
On the same system. And like I said about our cows here, you know, why is there 1,000 euros cow producing, you know, has a higher milk value?
Yeah.
And that's not down just for milk, that could be because she has a higher fertility value as well. It's a huge
Can I
factor.
ask you a question? You said that you dropped the milk for this scenario down from a typical top 5% to 20 to 17 odd.
Yes.
How did you drop the milk? How did that actually manifest itself in the decisions you were making?
You know, we look at efficiency there, and live weight is another thing there, but that's a different story. We can come back to that.
Yeah.
But we're dropping milk because we're being penalised for milk.
Yeah.
And we're increasing our percentages because we're not being penalised for them. So, like, a simple case study, simple out. 5,500 litre cow versus a 7,500 litre cow. The 5,500 litre cow is under the 6,500, which we're going to get penalised going forward. It's going to go from up to 106 organic matter of nitrogen. And they're both doing 500 kgs of milk solids. So 2 herds with 2,000 litres in the difference between both herds, and they're both doing the kgs of milk solids. One is being driven by percentages, and the other one is being driven by too much litres.
Yeah.
And for argument's sake, so you could say there's 5,000 litres in both herds, they're making the same amount of money. Because the kgs of milk solids are getting paid for the exact same kgs of milk solids, because the kgs of milk solids is 500 on both sides. But the biggest problem is your man had to manufacture or create 2,000 extra litres. And for each 1,000 litre, he was charged 4 cents a litre, which is 40 euros for 1,000 litres, which is 80 euros for his 2,000 litres. And in 100 cows, his extra manufacturing costs through the co-op, he actually he was charged 8,000 euros more. So the two 500 kgs of milk solids, they're not equal now, because you might have to pay 8,000 euros more, and you could potentially say that the other guy had to pay 800 less. And like the biggest problem with the higher volume, higher inputs, higher live weight gain, not always the case, higher cost, and potentially poor fertility, because we spoke earlier on that higher production equates to mostly or nearly all the cases poor fertility.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And a lower carbon footprint, which is the main focus. We're trying to reduce our carbon footprint because that's the way the environment.
That's the era we're heading into.
Yeah, that's the era we're heading into. We have to be more sustainable. And that's sustainability, again, is low carbon footprint. You're more sustainable on farm.
Okay.